So, hello everybody and welcome. Um, I want to thank mikveh.org. It is an honor for me to do this with everybody here. I teach Hilchos in Bishivka High School. This year was my 18th year of teaching Hilchos, and I do have a passion in it, and I collect stories throughout the years. And I'll share with you the halachas, the stories, the background, hashkafa, whatever I share with my students, I'll share with you. The halachas of Yichud are very, very important. We'll talk about, the reason why it's important and why. I'll tell you some stories that we see, the importance of it. And what I find important also is to review the halachas. It's not enough to just learn and rely on our memory, because a lot of times we remember different terms or different things, but we don't remember clearly what the halacha is. So it's important to learn the halachas. Rabbi Dubov has an excellent book in English. There are Sfarim in Hebrew also, whoever wants. And to always remember to ask. If I have any question and I'm not sure what to do and how, I always ask. So let's start. What I'm doing with you right now is, second. I'll do this in a few weeks. Zoom stopped a few weeks ago. I'm going to share with you the presentation that I prepared this year. I always teach it in class without slideshows, but this year we had to teach on Zoom, and it had to be more interactive and more interesting, and there was no board, so this is what I prepared for my students. So when I talk the Hagdama of the halachas of Yichud, there are two parts of the Hagdama. One part is a general one, and the second is more a specific one for Yichud. So the first point is that we should have in mind when we learn the halachas of Yichud is, number one, that halacha is never old-fashioned. It is never old-fashioned. Not only that, I want to add never outdated. I do want to say that I'm from Eretz Yisrael, so maybe there are fancier words, better English, better grammar. I'm using the English that I know, so you'll excuse me. So halacha is never old-fashioned or never outdated, means that it's always something that applies. Every halacha at all times always applies to all of us. And it's not that, sometimes people say, well, things change and today it's different. Yes, things change, but the idea of the halachas of Yichud and the reason behind it and the details of the halachas of Yichud, everything applies always. And it's not just the halachas of Yichud, it's everything. So the example that I like to use from a different field is, let's say, Hilchos Shabbos. In Hilchos Shabbos, let's say in halacha many years ago, the Paiskim talk about the ovens of the brick ovens and how you put things in and hatmana in the brick. We don't have brick ovens today, so we could look at it and say, well, these halachas don't apply today. We don't have brick ovens. But the ovens that we do have today, and what we have today using to cook food or to warm up food, this is how our Paiskim of our generation, when our ovens came out, and they based themselves on the halachas of the brick ovens, the halachas of the olden days, and based on the idea behind the psak of the halacha, this is how they paskin for today. So yes, maybe there are different things that are different today, but still the idea, what led to the psak, is always exists and always applies. And when it comes to different halachas, and when it comes to the halachas of Yichud, for example, an elevator. Years ago, there was no elevator. When the elevator appeared in the world, then the Paiskim then had to talk about an elevator. What's an elevator? Is it Yichud or not Yichud in an elevator? Based on the ruling, the halachas that were there before, based on the what leads to the psak in all the halachas of Yichud, they said if it's Yichud or not when it comes to an elevator. So we can never say about something that it's outdated or old-fashioned. It always applies. The next thing is borders are necessary and important. When it comes to the halachas of Yichud, a lot of times, in Torah B'chlal, there's asay, And there's more loisase than ase, right? More don't than do. And sometimes we could feel like a person could feel, I'm like, there's so much that I can't do. Let me live. And especially when it comes to teenagers that I teach in high school, sometimes they could feel like, Abishter, let me live. Why are you limiting me? So we talk here, I want to talk about how, like, just in short, we all know that borders are necessary and important. And I always feel when I drive on a road with no lines. They just fixed Eastern Parkway. Whoever drove lately on Eastern Parkway knows what I'm talking about. When you drive on a big road that has a few lanes, both directions, and there are no lines on the road, you don't feel safe. You don't feel secure. So all the halachas that the Eibishter gives us are really for our safety, for our protection, for our security. They're here to protect us and to help us. Without it, it's a scary world. Just like the road is a scary road. I hope, I'm trying my best to stay on my lane, and I'm hoping that the people are going to stay on their lane, and I'll get out of that road quickly. And we don't want to live a life like that. Let's get out of here quickly. We want to live a good life. Like it says, that's the third point over here, V'chai b'hem. The Eibusher gave us Torah and mitzvahs that we should have a good life. We should live with Torah and mitzvahs. And we know from the Hayom Yom of Yud with the story of the Tzemach Tzedek and Rebbetzin Rivka, that he tells her that Torah and that mitzvahs have to be performed with chayis and simcha. Yeah, and if she davens before she eats, there's no way she could daven with chayis, and she's not fulfilling what it says v'chai b'hem. So she has to eat before she davens, so she could daven with chayis. It's not just about tefillah; it's all the mitzvahs. All the mitzvahs that we do have to be done with chayis. And I want to talk about Yichud here for a few moments. Is sometimes it could get a little complicated. I have a flight, or I have a plan, or I plan whatever it is. I'm at a wedding, and then I'm standing there. I'm trying to figure out how am I doing this? This is Yichud, and I could sometimes feel frustrated. But we have to remember, V'chai b'hem. V'chai b'hem means that Torah and mitzvahs is something that we have to do with simcha, with chayis, with excitement. So if I'm not excited right now because of the situation that just fell on me and I don't know what to do with this, at least the chayis that I can have is that I'm doing the Eibusher's Ratzon. Right now, in this situation that I'm stuck right now and I don't know what to do, I am doing the Eibusher's Ratzon. I actually remember once being stuck in the airport in Prague. They booked too many people on one flight, and I was one of the last ones on the line. And there was no room for me on the flight. And they told me that I could take a taxi and go to the hotel, but it was too late, and there was no way I was going to a hotel with a driver late at night. So I ended up sitting on the bench in the airport the whole night. Was it comfortable? Was I happy about it? No, but I was happy that I was fulfilling the Eibishter's will. And I did not go into the taxi. So I was not happy to sit on the bench, but I was happy that I was doing what the Eibishter wants. So it doesn't mean, the Chayim doesn't mean that I always have to be happy in the little details of what I'm doing. If I can get there, good. But if I can't, at least the simcha that I can have is Baruch Hashem, I have the opportunity to fulfill the Eibishter's Ratzon. And if we ever feel in the halachas of Yichud or in any other part in Torah, and this is something that I stress when I talk to my high school girls, if I ever feel that I'm not feeling this excitement and chayas, and I'm feeling that it's an obligation, I always tell them either I have a problem that a doctor could solve, or I have a problem here that I could speak to people and work and solve over here. Once we solve this problem, then I could live a life of a chayba. Yosef HaTzadik. Let's go to specifically to Yichud. So when the Torah tells us about the story of Yosef HaTzadik, the Torah goes into the details. In the Chumash, we know that Yosef tried to always be in the house with the wife of Potiphar, with other people in the house. Came a point where there was a chaga and everybody left, and she had had something on her mind for a while. She was happy that everybody left. She stayed in that house. He had no other choice. He was a servant in that house. He had to stay home. And what happened when he was home alone with her in a Yichud situation, the whole story of the wife of Potiphar and Yosef happened. And Yosef and two major things had to happen in order for Yosef to be able to escape from that. One thing was, it says that he saw the image of his father in front of him. And the second was, it says that the opening of Gehenna opened in front of him. And these two big things, big major things that happened, helped him escape from the Aveira. So why does the Torah tell us about this story of Yosef? There are probably different things that happened in his life, not just these major events that the Torah chooses. There are more things that happened, but Ma'aseh Avos Siman Labanim, and anything that happened, and anything the Torah tells us is something that we should learn from. What we could learn from the story of Yosef is that Yosef was a big tzaddik, and he was in an Nisayan when he was forced in this situation to be in a situation of Yichud. But look what happens even to a big tzaddik in a situation of Yichud. And look how much help he needed from the Eibishter to get out of it. So if this is by Yosef HaTzadik, how much more so by us? And that leads us to the next point, where we're talking about the Al T'vi'einu Lo Yidei Nisayon that we say every single day. We ask the Eibishter every single day, the Al T'vi'einu Lo Yidei Nisayon, that the Eibishter should not bring us to tests. He shouldn't give tests. He shouldn't give us tests. Putting ourselves in a Yichud situation is definitely bringing a test on ourselves. If we don't want the Eibishter to do this to us, then we have to be careful and have to make sure that we do not bring it to ourselves. And the last thing is 1 second. When I grew up, many years ago, there was a concept of ispasnisht. There were different things that maybe were okay according to halacha, but when it came to can you do it, can you not, the answer was just ispasnisht. Not befitting, zelo matim, and you didn't need more than that. This is what you heard, and you knew you don't do that. Unfortunately, today it's gone. And the question today will be like, where's it written? A lot of times I get from my students, where's it written? And if it's not written anywhere, like, why are you making up something? And then you have to start explaining to people that there are different things that there's the law. Yeah, there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. We can't start writing every detail in the spirit of the law. It's like writing a book of tact. If someone doesn't get it, so you start saying, okay, so you have to move your head like this and you have to move your hands like that, but then they're going to do something else. We have to trust people that still have sensitivity, and when they tell us that something is pasnish, then this is what we do. So when it comes to situations of Yichud, and even if something is not Yichud, when it comes to situations of tznius, of interaction between men and women, a lot of times the first question will be, like I wrote over here, is it halachically permitted? Is it okay according to halacha? If the answer is no, good, I'm moving on. But sometimes with the positive answer, which means it is okay according to halacha, comes the next question, is it befitting or not? Is it past? Is past nicht? Is it something that it's appropriate? Is it the right thing to do or not the right thing to do? And there's no really, in the area of kedusha and tznius, there are different things that are not written. When the Eibishter tells us in the Torah, kedoshim tiyu, it doesn't go into the details of everything. When it says vatznei leches Hashem Elokecha, it's we were born by shanim. It's something that we're born with. It's a tchuna that a yid has from when we are born. Unfortunately, sometimes the sensitivity is killed, or there are people that are growing up in homes or in a society where there is no sensitivity, so they don't have it. But we could ask people that we know that do have sensitivity and find out, because sometimes some things are okay according to halacha, but it's just not, and this is really how I would describe it, pasnish. So let's move on, and we'll start with the halachas of Yichud. So the definition of Yichud is a seclusion of a man and a woman in a private area. Meaning, simple words, a man and a woman that have privacy, wherever it is, doesn't matter where it is. What is the reason for the Isser of Yichud? So the reason for the Isser of Yichud is to prevent immorality. Now, the mashal that I like to use here, that Yichud is like the yellow light before arayis, which is the red light. Okay? really, Torah doesn't want a man, to live with a woman that is not his wife. So that is the halacha in Torah. Come the Chachamim and say, listen, we realize that it's not enough to say that, because you need a fence. You need something to keep you away from the red light. The red light is so severe that we never ever want you to get to the red light. So we are going to put the barricade further away from the red light. And we are going to make an isser of Yichud. Now the difference between the mashal and the nimshal is that on the road, when we take the yellow light, we don't get a ticket. But here we do. Which means Yichud became an isser. Yichud is, yes, it's the yellow light before the red light, but right now Yichud is a red light on its own. Now I want to say something about this. Most people, let me stop sharing for a second, because I do want to tell you some stories here. Okay. Most people, majority of people, the way the Eibusher created us, we don't have bad intentions. People don't have bad intentions. If you take the mashal of the road, people don't come to a red light and just sit there and just take red lights. Yes, there are people that take red lights. And I know personally about myself, when I see people that take red lights, when I'm standing on the sidewalk and a person just takes a red light, my eyes just open. It's like, what did you just do? People don't plan to take red lights. People don't have bad intentions. When do regular people, like I consider myself regular, when do regular people like me end up taking red lights? When we're not careful with the yellow light. When I drive and I really want to get somewhere and I see that the light is turning yellow, but I want to catch that light, I'm going to catch the yellow, but I do sometimes find myself in the middle of the intersection when the light turns red. I continue. It's in the middle of driving. I just drive. But the light could turn red on me when I take the yellow light. And because this is what happens, our Chachamim say, we don't want this to happen. We don't want you to come to a situation where it's too late. You're just driving through and it's too late to stop. You're going to take the red light. So we're going to tell you that you are going to get a ticket when you take the yellow light. You are not allowed to take the yellow light. You see yellow, you're not allowed. And by doing that, this is really a prevention. And I do want to quote to you from the Rambam. Just a second. The Rambam talks about, Here. The Rambam talks about Yichud. And the Rambam says like this. The Rambam says there is nothing, not just about Yichud. The Rambam talks about Arayos and all that. The Rambam says that there is nothing in the whole Torah that's hard for people to separate from. Nothing hard like Arayos and Bias Asurais, which means the hardest thing to separate from is what we're talking about, the red light. And the Rambam says that because it's so hard for people to separate themselves from it, therefore a person should control his yetzer, and he should have kedusha yisera, extra kedusha, and pure thoughts, and he goes through a list, and then he says that a person should be careful from yichud, because yichud is the biggest cause, which means it is the hardest thing to separate from. But with working on controlling our yetzer, and with working on having machshavas, pure machshavas, and having like all the good things. Bottom line, should be careful from yichud, because yichud is the biggest cause for these things. So this yellow light is really something that, like the Rambam says, this is the biggest cause. Before we continue to the actual halachas, I do want to share with you two stories. First story is about the Koznitzer Maggid. It says like this: when the Koznitzer Maggid was old, let me just hold it in front so I could look at the camera. When the Koznitzer Maggid was old, he was laying in bed. He was very, very weak, and once his chassidim saw that he was trying to jump out the window. So they came running to the window. They asked him, "Why are you trying to jump out the window?" So he said, didn't you see that I was left home alone with the gaita, the cleaning lady? And it's Yichud. So they told him, but our Rebbe is so old and so weak, and the cleaning lady is so ugly. Like, what could happen already? So the Kajnitza Magid answered, don't you understand that in order to sin, the Yetzer Hara will give me fresh kaichais and will make her look pretty in my eyes. Now, not girls, women, ladies, this is a tzaddik. He was old and weak. He was laying in bed. He couldn't move. He tried to jump out the window because it's Yichud. And what does he say? That in order to sin, the Yetzer Hara does interesting things. He makes people feel strong. He gives them fresh kaichais. He makes ugly people look beautiful and pretty. So we have to. This really applies to stories where people could say, like sometimes my students could tell me, but come on, there's no come on. The Yetzer Hara has his ways. Unless the Rav tells us it's 100% fine, we have to follow what the Torah says. Another story, it says a very interesting story about the Alter Rebbe. It says that when the Alter Rebbe was old, his granddaughter, Rebbe Menucha Rachel, came to give him something to drink, and she turned to him in Yiddish. She spoke to him in plural. Didn't say you. She didn't say ata, do, meaning she spoke in a more bakavadika way. So he told her, if you turn to me like this, it means that you don't feel. He says it's a question of yichud, because to the people that are close with you, you don't talk in plural. You talk direct. And if this is how you talk to me, it's a shaila of yichud. At the end, he didn't leave the room. He stayed with her. And it says because she was his granddaughter, so he stayed. But really, when a person feels such a distance from someone, it's a shaila of yichud. And this is what the Alter Rebbe tells her. Another story that I want to share with you from the Gemara, and we'll end with this now, and I'll tell you another story some other time. I'll stick it in. There was a big tzaddik. His name was Reb Amram Chasida, and this is an example to show us how the Yetzer Hara could give someone fresh kaichais, and even if someone is old and has no kaichais, the Yetzer Hara has his ways. So Reb Amram Chasida was an old man, and in his house there was an attic. There was no way really to get into the attic from his house, only from outside. The only way to get to the attic from his house was to carry a very heavy ladder that you needed a few people to carry it, and then go up that ladder to his house. So Reb Amram, when there was a war then, and they were looking for a place to put women that they took from the war, and they decided that they'll put them in the attic of Reb Amram because it's not yichud, it's empty. There's no way to get there from the house unless you carry a heavy ladder. And they put them over there. And the Gemara says that one day Reb Amram was walking in his house, and he looked up and he saw these girls, and his Yetzer Hara woke up. Now he was an old man. He had such a strong taiva. He was able to carry the heavy ladder by himself. Now this is a heavy ladder that you need a few men to carry. This old man, like the Kajnitza Magid said, the Yetzer Hara gave him such kaichais that he was able to carry the ladder by himself. And he put the ladder in its place, and he started climbing up. And he realized what was happening, and he didn't want to go there, but his taiva was so strong. So he started screaming out loud that there's a fire in the house of Amram, a fire in the house of Amram. So his Talmidim came running to the house to save him, and they saw there was no fire, and they understood exactly what happened. So they said to him, Rebbe, you embarrassed us, meaning we were embarrassed for you to see you in such a situation. So he says to them, it's better for me to be embarrassed in Olam Hazeh than to be embarrassed in Olam Haba. But why did I bring this story? I brought this story to show an example of how the Yetzer Hara could make an old, weak person be strong and be able to do something that is really very hard to do. Okay, I lost my box. Where is share screen here? Just a second. Okay, so here we go. Now we're going to the age. So the age for the Isser of Yichud, in order for something to be considered an Avera, you need someone in this situation has to be Chayav Mitzvah, over Bar Bas Mitzvah. So if the boy and the girl are both under Bar and Bas Mitzvah, it's not considered Yichud. But if one of them, obviously if both, but if one of them is over Bar Bas Mitzvah, then it is Yichud. So if the boy is 13 or older, he's not allowed to be alone with a 3-year-old girl and older. If the girl in the situation is over Bas Mitzvah, she's not allowed to be alone with a 9-year-old boy and older. So again, in order for it to be a problem, at least one has to be over Bar Bas Mitzvah. If the boy is the one, then he can't be with a 3-year-old and older. If the girl is the one, she cannot be alone with a 9-year-old and older. Yichud with relatives. So it's not Yichud, there's no Yichud with parents, grandparents, and siblings. I did make a star because siblings, a brother and a sister, cannot live alone without anyone in the house for more than 30 days. So I always say that this for sure applies to Crown Heights, where you have girls in seminary or girls working here and brothers that are either in 770 learning or maybe sitting and learning in 770. Hopefully this is what people are doing. And then, and why should they rent different places? Maybe the grandparents have an apartment here, but a brother and a sister are not allowed to live alone for more than 30 days. 30 days make it permanent. A house is not chayav to have a mezuzah under 30 days. 30 days means that it's permanent. So they cannot live alone for more than 30 days. Up to 30 days, it's okay, but after 30 days, it's not. There is yichud with uncle, aunt, niece, nephew, cousins, and in-laws. Uncle, aunt, niece, and nephew, really, it's if there's uncle, it means it's yichud with for the niece also. But uncle and the niece, the aunt with her nephew, cousins, and in-laws, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, father-in-law, mother-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, all these relatives there is yichud with. I'll tell you some stories later about students that told me how they feel like my cousin is like my brother. And we'll see that if your cousin is like your brother, you have to be even more careful. That doesn't make it okay. That makes it a situation that you have to be even more careful than a regular situation. So let's move on. Now, yichud that can be nullified is not yichud. Okay? There are 2 ways to nullify yichud. 2 general ways. I want to talk today about one way of nullifying yichud. I'll just tell you the 2 general ways and then we'll continue. One way of taking away yichud is taking away the definition of yichud. I'll explain. The second way of taking away yichud is taking away the reason of yichud. Taking away the definition means, we said that a definition means that it's a man and a woman, basically they have privacy, right? This is what we said. Taking away the definition means that we took away the privacy. By taking away the privacy, it's not yichud, and it's okay. Taking away the reason. Taking away the reason, we said that the reason for yichud is a prevention, right? So if we have someone there, if we don't need a prevention, because we have someone there that is a prevention already, we don't need the halachas of yichud to be a prevention, because there is somebody there that is a prevention. Now, some of you are maybe thinking, if there's somebody there that's a prevention, it means you took away privacy. So I'll give you an example of where somebody else can be there and it did not take away the privacy and it's not yet a prevention. 2 women and a man in a private area is yichud. Okay? 2 women and a man is Yichud. That means one woman is not a prevention for the other. Privacy is not taken away. 2 women and a man is still considered private. When is 2 women and a man not Yichud? When the 2 women are mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Which means we didn't take away the privacy. 2 women and a man is considered private, but we have, these 2 women have a sensitive relationship, and each one takes away Yichud for the other. So what we took away over here, what we did over here, we placed a prevention for each one. So we don't need the halacha, we don't need to keep the halachas of Yichud as a prevention because it's not a problem. The mother-in-law uses as the prevention for the daughter-in-law, between the daughter-in-law and the man, and the daughter-in-law uses as a prevention between the man and the mother-in-law. So it's fine. We don't need to send them away or not be alone in the same place because each one is a prevention for the other. So the first way, taking away the definition, will be more by doing actions. And the second way of taking away the reason will be by adding certain people or a certain amount of people there, and that takes away the Isser of Yichud. That takes away the Yichud. It's not Yichud anymore. Okay, so taking away the definition. So how do we take away the definition? We take away the definition by having a Pesach Basuach L'Reshus HaRabim, an opening to the public. This is how we take away the definition. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to list a list of openings. I will touch public here and there, but I'm going to list all the openings. And then I will talk about the public, and I'll remind you while we're talking about the public that we have to make sure that it fits with the opening. But the idea is that it's not enough to have an opening. It needs to be open to the public. So here we go, yes. Okay, so what are the openings? So we're going to talk about 5 different openings. One is a door, the other one is a window, then we'll talk about a car or a taxi, then we'll talk about an elevator, and about a doctor's office, how we can have an opening when it comes to these 5 things. So let's start with a door. Now, when I'm saying a door, I'm referring to any door. The entrance door to the house, doors to rooms inside the house, any door is this. These are the halachas to any door. So the first, here we have a few options. Option number 1, right, I learned here. Option number 1 is an open door. We have to make sure that it's open to the public. If I live in a place, then opening my door like this, or maybe opening my door a little bit, people won't see and won't notice, and it doesn't take away the privacy, then I need to open my door wide. Really, how to open the door, how big, how much, depends on the place where we are, the style of life that we live in, the place where we live. In some places, when the door is open a little bit, it doesn't mean, like, people don't even see that it's open a little bit. Especially out of town, you can live in places where nobody even looks, nobody sees your door. So opening the door a little bit doesn't help. In order for me to take away the privacy, the door has to be wide open. But talking about Crown Heights, for example, I think in most houses in Crown Heights, when we open the door a little bit, we're not just going upstairs and going to sleep. We don't feel fine to leave the door open a little bit. We're always feeling that our door is open. We know that our door is open, we're aware, and we're not just going to get lost in the kitchen and cook and forget about it for hours and hours. No, it's not out of town, it's Crown Heights. So it depends where we live, and based on that, we know how much we have to open the door. If you live in a building, then I think that in a building, opening the door a little bit takes away Yichud because people are there. If you live, let's say, on the top floor and you don't really have neighbors, or every situation has to be assessed according to the situation. So opening the door depends on where we live. Now let's go to the third option over here. If you see, it says open. I don't necessarily have to have my door wide open or a little bit open, as long as it's open and I know that people could walk in. In Eretz Yisrael, for example, there is a mentality of, it's more of a Sephardic mentality. It's to people knock and open. Knock to let you know that someone's entering. Knock in a good case. Someone's coming into your house and then they open the door. If you live in a place like that, then you don't need to keep your door open. The fact that it's unlocked and you know that your neighbors could just walk into your house, all you need to do is unlock the door and that's it. You lost your privacy because you know that people just walk into your house. If you have a Chabad house that people just walk into your Chabad house without really knocking or letting you know, that's also fine. That means that we don't need to open the door. We could keep it unlocked. But again, everything depends on where we are, where we live, what the standards are. If people could come in, what do people do when the door is open or not open? I want to talk about this for a second, again, about a combination lock. Let's say I have a combination lock on my door, but I know that people know the code and they can come in. It's Tishrei in Crown Heights. I have guests staying in my house. My guests know the combination. I don't know when they're coming into my house. They could just appear. If I know that they could just appear in my house, then the fact that my door is locked with a combination, it doesn't mean that it's locked, because for them it's open. They have a way to get in. They don't need me to open the door for them. They just put in the code and they walk in. It's the same with a key. If you have a key and people have the key and people could just walk into your house. And now in this, we can't fool ourselves. We have to know that people could actually come. What I often say, I use my sister as an example. I live on East New York Avenue. My sister lives on Lincoln Place. I could play dumb and say, well, my sister knows my combination. She sometimes shows up in my house. She does sometimes show up in my house. But it doesn't happen often enough on a daily basis that I know that my sister just walks in. And so when she walks in, it's like, wow, welcome. What brought you to this side of town? If I know, so I can't play dumb. I can't say, well, so many people know my combination. I need to know that these so many people that know my combination could actually come to my house. It's something that happens. When I'm in my house, they just walk in. If this is my situation, then even if I have a combination or I have a key and people have the key, it's considered open because for them it's open. For these people that could enter, it's considered open. So let's just sum up. Open means that it's available for people either to just see what's going on because the door is wide open, or to enter my house. I feel that I lost my privacy when I open my door. I know that if my door is not locked, for example, if people just walk into my house, if my door is not locked, then I don't have privacy. Then it's okay. Then it's considered an opening. Next is the window. So if people from outside could see what's going on inside, then it's not a problem. Now, one second. There, people from outside could see what's going on inside, then I could rely on my window being my opening. But when I'm saying people from outside could see what's going on inside, sometimes students can tell me, well, technically could be this. Okay? Technically, if they really want it, there's no technically if they really want. When people walk by my house, can they see inside my house? If the answer is yes, all I need to do is open my shades and I'm fine. If they can't see into my house, then I cannot use my window as an opening. So for sure in the evening, when we have light in the house and it's dark outside, for sure we could, if we're in a Yichud situation, let's say I'm in my living room, someone's staying in my house, all I need to do is open the curtains and my shades and people could see into the house. I do want to say here that I cannot be in my room and the guest in his room and I open the curtains in my front window. It has to be open to where I am. The door, if my door is open, I can go upstairs and be in my room, and my guest could be in his room, and it's fine if the door is open, because people could actually walk into the house. I lost my privacy. But with the window, it has to be open to where we are, to where I am, at least, let's say where I am. So if people from outside could see what's going on inside, it's considered an opening. Sometimes during the day, it's a problem because people aren't always able to see what's going on inside. So if you want to know, you go outside your house, you stand where people walk, and you assess the situation. Can people from outside see what's going on inside? Now, it also applies, it could be if we have neighbors, let's say I live on the third floor in a building and I have neighbors right across from me, and they could see into my house and I could see into their house. And if I want privacy, I don't open my shades, then perfect. If I'm in that room, I could open the shades and they could see into my house. Here we go. This is it. Open the shades. Okay. Car or taxi? How much time do we have? Okay, we have time. Good. So let's talk about this. We have two cars over here. One has see-through windows and one has tinted windows. Remember, the idea is people from outside should be able to see what's going on inside. That is the idea. So when I get into a car, first of all, let's say if I order a taxi for myself, when I walk towards the taxi, I see if I could see or I can't see. If I cannot see into the car, I'm going to have to create an opening. If it's during the day, creating an opening means, when I sit in the car, I have to think, okay, an opening. How do I create an opening right now? If it's during the day, all I need to do is roll down the window. I open the window, and like that, people could see what's going on. Now, remember, I'm not opening the window to make a check. Open the window, check. That means I could open it this much. I'm opening the window to create a possibility for people to see. So if I open it this much, okay, I'm sitting further away from it, and people can't really see. I have to open the window enough for people to see what's going on inside the car. If people could see without opening, Gesundheit, we don't have to open the window. Now, if it's night, okay, by night, sometimes it doesn't help to open the window because the road is not well lit and people cannot see when I open the window. So what we need to do at night is, if you see this car, there's light in the car. Now, we don't have to turn on the light, like all the lights in the car, but we have to have some light in the car so for people to be able to see what's going on. And so either we turn on the light right on top of us, or if you don't want to bother, you're going to Uber, you don't want to bother the driver, or it's, let's say, Uber pool, and you don't want to bother anyone. I don't have my phone here. What I do is I turn the flashlight of my phone, but if I hold it just like I hold it on my phone, for example, if I hold it like this, like on the side, I personally, I don't feel it's enough light. The flashlight is not strong enough for people to be able to see what's going on. I'm turning on the flashlight, not to make a check, I turn on the flashlight. I turn on the flashlight because I want people from outside to see what's going on inside. So personally, when I turn on my flashlight in the car, I'll pick up my phone a little bit to make sure that there is light in the area of me and the window so people could see what's going on inside. I often get from students that it's illegal to turn on the light. When I took my permit test, I don't remember seeing such a thing. If anyone knows that it's illegal, let me know, but I don't remember seeing this. I know that it's easier to drive without light, but sometimes we need to turn on the light. If kids lose things in the back of the car and we have to turn on the light and they're looking for it, we do that, right? Because a child is throwing tantrum and we need this child to find whatever the child is looking for. So right now, in order for me to be able to be in this car and get to where I need to get, the light has to be on. I actually, I'll tell you in the stories. I'll save it for the real life examples. I'll tell you more examples when we talk about the public, Rosh Hashanah, because then we'll be able to really understand the examples. We'll see the opening to the public. We'll see both. So I'm not going to tell you examples really over here because I want to wait for when we have it clear, the opening to the public, and then I'll share with you real life examples. And I have plenty of those. Elevator. So an elevator, one second, an elevator in general is considered an opening, especially elevators today. When I grew up, there were elevators that you went into the elevator on the first floor and nobody entered and nobody walked out. Nothing happened until you reached the floor where you wanted to go. So these elevators are I don't even know if they exist. I don't think they exist. Today's elevators, people call the elevator on any floor. The elevator stops on different floors. So an elevator is considered an opening. The only problem with the elevator is that sometimes it's too late. So an elevator is an opening, but it could be not open to the public if it's too late. And because we need to have both, then if it's late at night, and here I am, I come to the building and there's a man holding the elevator for me, but it's late at night. And late at night, people are not around. So I could play dumb and say, well, if I am up and he's up, must be that other people are up. But let's remember that we're playing dumb on ourselves is a silly thing to do. Because who am I fooling? Who am I fooling? It's late. It's late. It happens to be that I'm up and he's up, but chances are that people are not coming in and we need public. So yes, this person is holding the elevator for me, but it's too late. So what do I do? So I'd like to give ideas of what to do and how to get out of a situation like this. I think that as adults, it's easier for us to get out of situations like that. I find that with teenagers, it's so hard for them to say sentences that are just uncomfortable to say. And I always tell them, and if you have daughters, teenage daughters, or you're going to share with them, I always tell my students, the more you practice, the more you say, and I'm telling you the same thing, the more we say these sentences, we don't blush anymore. We don't feel uncomfortable saying it. It just becomes a natural language. Just like I don't blush when someone picks up something that's muktzah next to me, and I want to tell them that it's muktzah because they don't realize. I don't start blushing and thinking, how can I say? It just comes out of my mouth. Or let's say my sister is doing something that I know you can't do on Shabbos. I don't think a million times, how should I say, what should I say? I say it. I say that whatever it is. And the same thing is with Yichud. The more we practice, the more we say, the more we get used to saying it, it's going to become something like anything else that we say in Yiddishkeit. Or in life, not just Yiddishkeit. So if I come to the elevator and the man is standing there and I tell him, I could say, no, I'm not going in yet, I'm still waiting. Thank you so much for holding the door, I'm not going in yet, I'm still waiting. I like to give these ideas because sometimes you don't know what to say. So here you have a sentence. I find that it's harder when you are the one waiting for the elevator. You call the elevator, and then somebody walks into the building and the person sees that I'm on my way to the elevator. What am I supposed to do now? You could say anything. You could say, you know what? You could say, you know what? I'm not going in now. I'm still waiting for somebody, waiting for you to go up. That's somebody, or whatever it is. But the idea is that I should not be going into the elevator because I feel uncomfortable. Remember, feeling uncomfortable has to be that I feel uncomfortable from the Eibishter. How could I face the Eibishter knowing that he doesn't want me to go into the elevator, and I felt uncomfortable from this person that's standing by the elevator? If it's a Yid, if it's a Frum Yid, I should feel uncomfortable from a Frum Yid. We both know we have to keep the halachas of Yichud. If it's a Frum Yid, I could literally say, and that's what I always tell them, I could literally say, it's Yichud, it's too late. You could go up first and I'll go second. It's totally fine to say that. You get a ride with someone, you babysit somewhere. That's what I tell my students. It's totally fine to say it's too late. It's Yichud. Use the word. Say it's Yichud. If it's a firm person. And if it's a guy, I'm feeling uncomfortable in front of a guy. Like really, I have to answer myself but to a guy? The Eibishter is the one that's telling me what to do. Who cares what the guy thinks or doesn't think? I could say that I'm still waiting. I could say that I changed my mind. I could say anything I want. But I am not going to go into this elevator because I feel uncomfortable. Feeling uncomfortable here is not the right feeling. It's the wrong feeling right now. So I am feeling uncomfortable. What should I do? I have to switch it and realize that this busha that I feel, I'm embarrassed, it's the wrong place to feel it. I have to be embarrassed. I don't remember which Rebbe, if somebody could remind me, was koshering his dishes Erev Pesach, and he was pouring too much water. The new dishes didn't arrive. He had to kasher the dishes. He was pouring too much water, and his wife got nervous because she was nervous from the Goya downstairs that gave them trouble. And she said, "Be careful, the downstairs neighbor." She said it in Yiddish, and he told her, "From the downstairs neighbor, you're nervous, and not from the upstairs neighbor," meaning not from the Eibishter, not from the one above. So that is really, that is the idea. When I get into a car, when I'm in a house, when I'm anywhere in an elevator, the idea is that I only have to think about the Eibishter. It's not about, I have to find the right words to say, but I'm not going to be in a Yichud situation because I don't have the right words to say. Better to be embarrassed, like he said, in Olam Hazeh. It's not just in Olam Hazeh or Olam Haba, because we don't, I know this is the right thing, and I'm not going to be embarrassed to do the right thing. I'll say whatever I say, whatever comes out of my mouth. I don't care what this person thinks about me. I need to know that it's not Yichud right now. Okay, sorry. I do want to talk about, let's talk about it right over here. Sensitivity. So I put it over here because of a story that's connected to an elevator. And I'll stop sharing and I'll share with you the story. So the story I heard, and here I'll talk a little bit about sensitivity, but I do want to tell you that really when I talk about sensitivity, when I talk to my high school students, I take a long time to pause and talk about it over here because I find, sometimes things are connected. This is where it connects. So my father was telling me that he once went to the Menachem Avel somewhere with my mother and another lady from the community. And when they left the house, or they came to the elevator, or they left the Shiva house and they came to, whatever it was, they came to the elevator, they called the elevator. And when the elevator opened, this lady told my parents that she'll take the steps. It's fine. They could go by themselves. Now, my father was discussing the story with me. He was telling me, what does it mean she'll take the steps? It's not, what's the problem with going into the elevator with a couple? A Reform couple, a Hasidic couple. It's an elevator. It's not Yichud. It's not, halachically, there is no problem. Just the elevators, probably was an old building in Eretz Yisrael, and the elevators are small. And going to a small elevator with another man who is not her husband made her feel uncomfortable, even though that man's wife was there. But it's a small elevator. And for her to be standing there in a small area with another man made her feel uncomfortable. So let's go back to what we spoke about before. Is it halachically correct? Is it halachically a problem? No, it's not a problem. Now, even if it's the question said, is it befitting or not? It's a real sensitivity issue. Not issue, it's a sensitivity story, I would say. It shows us how a woman could be so sensitive that really you could say, no, it's fine. She could squeeze herself next to her friend, the man's wife, and she'll be fine. But this lady was so sensitive that she felt uncomfortable to go into the elevator with another man. Now, knowing the lady, that's her. That is so her to do that. And I always take it and I tell it to my students, and I feel like, first of all, we don't hear a lot of stories like this today, and they should know they exist. And when we talk about sensitivity, I talk about many things that have nothing to do with Yichud, but have to do with men and women, which means I'll just touch, and if we have time, I'll talk at the end. Here I go into day camps, if there are boy counselors, and I talk about Shabbos tables when it comes to boys and girls. And I tell them that a lot of times it's halachically not a problem, but it's not the right thing to do. It causes afterwards maybe problems in halacha, but it's not the right thing to do. We talk about makeup by a man, getting the palate done by a man, which is halachically not okay, getting a haircut by a man, music lessons by a man, different things that some, the answer is no, we're not allowed according to halacha, and some it's maybe halachically fine. Doesn't say anywhere it's not allowed, but again, sensitivity. And one thing that I want to say here that I stress and stress and stress, and by the way, when I got feedback from my students at the end of the year, this is something that a lot of them wrote. Pouring the water. Oh, you wrote down what it was? Okay, I'll see it after. The message that I want to give myself and you and everyone, whoever's ready to listen to this. The Eibishter created us with little sensors right over here. And it's a gift from the Eibishter. And they do pop up sometimes. And we feel uncomfortable. And we feel that something is off, or we don't feel that it's right. We feel uncomfortable. And we have to listen to these feelings, because the Eibishter gave it to us for a purpose. These sensors protect us. So maybe if I ignore and I just push them down and I say, stop it, don't be so sensitive. Maybe this situation, it's fine. And afterwards, I'll tell myself, you see, everything was fine. Why did you drive yourself crazy? You didn't have to do anything. Yes, but when I take these sensors and I put them down again and again and again, what happens at the end is they don't pop up anymore. These sensors pop up because that's how the Eibishter put them there, to pop up when they sense something. But if I keep on putting them down, they stop feeling it. They don't sense anymore. And I'll address the questions soon. I just want to tell you another story, and then I'll address questions. I'll tell you another story that has to do with sensitivity, not with Yichud. And this happened to me, and I like to use it because it's these sensors that popped up, and I listened to them. I went into an elevator on the 5th floor. This was morning. I dropped off my baby by babysitter, went into the elevator. The elevator went up to the 6th floor. A man walked in, a very creepy man. Said, gave a huge smile and said good morning. Good morning. And before I even had a chance to think or act or do anything, the door closed. I pressed 5. Remember, I walked in on the 5th floor, but I pressed 5 because I felt so uncomfortable to be with him in the elevator, even though it was 9:15 in the morning. The elevator, people are in and out. It's a time that people are still sending children to school, but I felt so uncomfortable that I pressed 5 and I walked out. I tell this to my students, and I tell them, I'm not telling you that a problem, something chas v'shalom could have happened. No, I listened to myself, how I felt. And it's important. If I feel uncomfortable in a situation, listen to yourself, because sometimes this uncomfortable feeling saves us. It really, really does. If you don't feel comfortable, you go to a certain doctor, you go to a certain natural healer, you go to anyone, and you just don't feel comfortable, don't tell yourself, it's fine, stop it. Why are you driving yourself crazy? Unless, I just want to say something, disclaimer, unless I'm a person that always drives myself crazy and I find myself feeling uncomfortable all the time from different things, then maybe it's not so healthy. I could talk to someone and see if it's healthy or not. But if I'm a regular person, I don't feel uncomfortable all the time. I'm totally fine. I live a good life. And every once in a while, sometimes in situations I feel awkward. You feel awkward? Listen to yourself. It's a gift that the Eibishter gave us. It doesn't mean that every time we feel awkward and we don't listen to us and we don't listen, something bad will happen. All it means that we are staying in tune to our emotions and feelings, and the Eibishter gave it to us, and it's something that we should use because it's good for us. Let's pause. I'll take some questions.
Okay. Hi. So I'm going to ask you the questions because they came to me. Number 1 is, do both the man and the woman need to be in the room with the open window?
What I understood, that it's one of them. That's what I understood from Rob.
Okay. Another person wanted to just let you know that they checked on Google and it's illegal to drive with the lights on. So what other suggestion would you have if someone ends up in a car at a time that there should be a light on?
So I'll talk about the other suggestions. Not now, because there are more suggestions, but unfortunately, not unfortunately, it's just a fact. Sometimes this is the only option. So if this is the only option, then it's not like illegal like taking a red light. And if I turn on the flashlight of my phone, it's not like turning on like all the lights in the car. So really what I would suggest is no one's going to tell you it's illegal to have your flashlight of your phone on. So you could turn on the flashlight of the phone and then, like I said, shine it higher up in a way that people could see what's going on.
People can see inside the car. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, the reference you had mentioned the story of pouring the water. So just for the audience sake, someone posted that it occurred with Rebbe Rashab. It asked which.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very, very much.
What is the halacha if my husband has to drive a babysitter home?
So I do want to answer it, but what a lot of times I do, I give my students a blank page at the end of the booklet, and I tell them, write down all your questions, because I'll hopefully answer most or all of them throughout this booklet. So I will talk about it. I will talk about it, but we need to learn more about the public in order to be able to answer this. So please save this question, and we'll talk about it, mention it when we talk about the public when it comes to a car.
Okay. Do people actually need to be around to take away Yichud? Meaning, is it enough to turn a light on in a car, even if you're in a place that there's nobody around? So the light is.
Then you're talking about public. We'll talk about it soon.
Okay. Can you discuss what you tell your students about guests at a Shabbos table?
Yes, I could, but whoever asked that, could you please remind me when we finish the halachas of Yichud, and then I'll go into all the things I tell my students.
All right, and then a few more people message, so everyone should know you're allowed to turn it on momentarily, and so the cops don't really have any way of knowing if you did it momentarily or had it for a while. And
Thank you.
It's not something cops will stop you for. So overall, if that's the situation you're in, you shouldn't worry about it too much. Are you continuing for tonight, or are we?
You tell me what you want. I can continue.
Yes.
I should? Okay.
Are we at the halfway mark? I know we're continuing next week, so.
I'll try to finish at least
halfway through, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so
tell me what time you want me to finish.
10.
10 is late.
Yeah. If anyone else has any questions, going forward, we'll stop 5 minutes before for questions for tonight, and we will be continuing next week.
Second, let me open here. Not need to go there. Okay. Doctor's office. So a doctor's office, in general, in a doctor's office, if there are people in the waiting room, it's not considered yichud. Here we go. So in this, really what it's going to look like, where is my spot? Right over here. So here I am sitting in the room, and the doctor is sitting right over here. If there are people in the waiting room, there are nurses in the office, we don't need to keep the door open. We don't need to keep it a little bit open. The fact that it's unlocked is fine. It's fine, and it's not considered yichud. I do want to say that the last few years, I think we all experienced that this is something else that I remind my students, the Hayomim of Chav Beishvat. In the Hayomim of Chav Beishvat, it says that there are laws that are created from life, and there are laws that create life. Human laws are created from life, meaning, check what's going on. We see this is going wrong. This is going wrong. Let's make a law. This is going wrong. Let's make a law. We see that something is about to go wrong. We'll make a law. But Torah laws are laws that create life. The Eibishter looked in the Torah and created the world. The Eibishter doesn't look at the world and say, "Okay, what should we do to protect this world?" The Eibishter created us knew exactly what our nature is, and brought us here with the Torah and the mitzvahs. So today they're telling doctors that if a doctor has to check a woman, let's say if a woman has to pick up her shirt in the doctor's office, the nurse has to come in. How did this happen? 50 years ago, a nurse did not come in. How did all of a sudden a nurse have to start coming in? Because there were stories that happened. And because of stories that happened, the law was created from life. Look how we have to partially be thankful to the Eibishter. And when we see it in the halachas of Yichud a lot, how the Eibishter, our Chachamim, were, I don't know how many steps ahead. They right away, when they realized that Yichud is a problem, right away, all the halachas of Yichud, the ages and everything. And today, I think that we can understand even more than 50 years ago, for sure 100 years ago, but even 30 years ago. We can understand so much more how important these halachas are, and be thankful to the Eibishter that he's protecting us by these halachas of Yichud. So today, really, when it's more of a private checkup, usually there's a nurse in the room. But even if there's no nurse in the room, there's no problem for the doctor to check the woman. He's also considered, it's considered that it's his profession. He doesn't want to lose his profession. There are people in the waiting room. There are nurses in the room. I don't know about different doctors' office. I know Dr. Rosen's office. When things happen to me, I always thank the Eibishter, and I put it on my list. There were a few times, I think 3 or 4 times from the times that I came to the doctor, that nurses actually opened the door and handed things to the doctor, knocked and opened. Obviously, they know that if it's something private, then somebody will be in. But they knocked and opened. So if there are people in the office, it's not a problem. The problem could be if the office is empty. If there's no one in the office. And if there's no one in the office and I'm just there with a doctor alone, then it's a problem. Then I have to make sure that either I bring someone with me that takes away Yichud, or I keep the door open, or whatever it is, I need to take away Yichud. If there's nobody else in the office, just me and a doctor, it's a man and a woman alone. So yes, you could rely on a heter that if he has a profession that he doesn't want to lose, but it is a heter. And it's not something we want to rely on when it's an empty office and there's nobody there. So the right thing to do when the office is empty is to take away Yichud by, let's say, either I bring someone that takes away Yichud, or I open the door to the room, and I keep the front door a little bit open. And like this, I know that I took away the privacy. Let's start, you know what? Let's start with the public. We'll do first. Public first is first point in public is when people are around or people can come in. Okay? People are around. Let's go to the people are around. People are around applies to the door. When I open my door and people are outside, when I open my shades and people are around, people are there. When in a car, here is an answer. In a car, I'm in a car, and that we'll talk about a car more after. The third thing is we'll talk about the roads more. But when people are around, it's a time that people are around. Elevator, it's a time that people are around. And the doctor's office also, people are around. Now, it doesn't have to be that when I open my window, I need to see people outside standing over there. No, it doesn't. Or it doesn't mean that when I open my door, I need to see the people out. But if it's a time and a place that I know that people are usually around, then even if I'm not seeing anyone right now, but I know that it's a time and place that people are around, then this takes away Yichud. So if I created an opening and it's open to the public, to a place where people are around, it's not Yichud. People can come in applies to the door. If I know that people could walk in, so if my door is wide open and people go, if my door is closed even, like I said before, like I mentioned when we spoke about the door. If it's 4 o'clock and I know that I live in a place where children just walk home from school, no carpool, I don't have to pick anyone up, Crown Heights. It's 4 o'clock, my kids are not home yet, my cousin just walked in, and I'm home alone with my cousin. What should I do? People can come in at any given moment. Or I'm having guests in the house right now. No one is in my house right now, but I don't know when they're coming in. They could just walk in on me. Again, I'm not fooling anyone. I'm not fooling myself. I know that it's not that they left for the day and they're supposed to come at night and I say, well, technically they could walk in. No, I know that they could just, I don't know, anyone can come whenever. Then it's considered open to the public. So when people are around or people can come in, it's open to the public. On the road. So on the road, now I do want to say, I want to tell you a lot of stories that have to do with, let me start stories and then we'll get to the road. Let me tell you some real life stories. So first real life story happened to me. And I learned a very interesting halacha when it happened. First real life story was when I was living right across from 770, top of the bank. And I had one baby then. And my husband was Shabbos morning. My husband was in 770 and I was home alone. My baby finally fell asleep and all I was waiting for was to go into bed, go to sleep. And there was a knock on my door. And when I opened my door, I saw two boys that I knew. Tishrei time, a lot of guests. So there were two friends of my two younger brothers. One was, I think, 15, and the other one was a little bit older. And the older one told me that the younger one was in the hospital overnight, and they sent him home in the morning. But he's sleeping on a mattress in an apartment, and he doesn't want to send him there. He wants to take him to his apartment. So he wants to know if he could stay by me during davening, and then after davening, he'll come and pick him up. They said, of course. Now, it was just natural. As a daughter of a Rav of a community, my house is an extension. So they felt very comfortable, especially my brother's friends, felt very comfortable. And I said, of course. And I gave him something hot to drink, and I gave him something to eat, and I had an extra bed. He went to bed, and I was sitting there thinking, what do I do now? My baby's sleeping. I want to go to sleep. I was not going to go to sleep with my door open. I kept the whole time when he was in the house, I kept the front door open, but I wasn't going to go to sleep with the door open. I wasn't sure if I was allowed to lock myself in my room and close it. I didn't know what to do. I was looking for my Yichud notes. I couldn't get to them. They were by the computer, would turn on the computer. So I didn't know what to do. What I ended up doing, I stayed on the couch. The door was open. Maybe I fell asleep, maybe not. I guess I davened and I didn't go to sleep. I was on the couch. After Shabbos, I looked in my notes. I couldn't find an answer. So I actually called the Rav to find out because I wanted to know in the future, what is the halacha? Can I lock myself in my room when I have someone staying in my house? And the interesting answer that I got was the Rav told me that I could lock myself in my room if I have a bathroom in my room. A woman could lock herself in her room if she has a bathroom in the room. And when I asked the Rav why Dafka bathroom, so the Rav told me that if I lock myself in my room and I have a bathroom in my room, I don't have to go out. We could be hungry, we could be thirsty, it's okay. But if we need the bathroom, we're going to have to come out if we don't have a bathroom in the room. So not having a bathroom in the room means that I lock myself in a place that technically I'm not going to stay there forever. I can't stay there for a long time. I'm going to have to come out. So locking myself in my room without a bathroom wouldn't help. The Rav told me if you have a bathroom in the room, then it's fine. Then you could lock yourself in the room. So this was 16 years ago, maybe even more. And this is when I learned this major detail in halacha. That if I have a bathroom in my room, I could lock myself in the room. So you could tell it to your children also. Daughters, it's for women. A man, it doesn't help if a man locks himself in the room. The woman could lock herself in the room if she has a bathroom in the room. If she wants to lock herself in the bathroom, maybe she could do the same thing and sit there for an hour and wait for someone to come. But this is one story that happened to me. Another thing that happened, and this is something that we could create, meaning let's talk about the second option that I said, people can come in. maybe people are not necessarily, I'm not expecting anyone to come, but I could create this situation where I call a neighbor and I say I'm home alone with my cousin, my uncle, a man, a worker, or whatever it is, and I ask this neighbor to. I tell the neighbor that I'm going to keep the door a little bit open, or I'm unlocking the door, and please walk in whenever you can. Now this person doesn't have to actually walk in, but the fact that I know that somebody could walk in on me takes away yichud. Now this is something that I tell girls also, Crown Heights girls that are babysitting here. I tell them, if you can't find a way to take away yichud, it is a yichud situation. This is one way to take away yichud. You could call a friend that lives close and ask her for a favor. Tell her you leave the door a little bit open, or you tell her the combination, or whatever it is, and ask her to walk in if she can. If she doesn't end up doing it, it's still okay, because I knew that somebody could walk in. If somebody didn't walk in, they didn't. But the whole time I knew that somebody could. So I had, my story was that I had my brother's friend used to drop off his laundry by me. I would wash the laundry for him and he would pick it up. And by night, my husband is usually not home, and he would come. And then he would come, and I always asked him if he ate supper, and he would say no. Usually the answer was no, and I would sit and eat and read and stay. And I had to figure out what to do. I don't know why. Now I'm telling you this, but at that time, I did not think of opening my shades. It was not even something that came into my mind. But really, if I'm in my living room and I open my shades wide open, the whole street could see into my house. My house becomes completely open to the public. So what I did, I called the neighbor, and I asked the neighbor I said that I'm keeping my door a little bit open, slightly, and if he could walk in. Now, it doesn't have to be a woman. The fact that someone could open and show up, that takes away your hope. The neighbor did not end up coming in, but it doesn't matter. I knew that I took away yichud. So this is another example of how we can take away yichud. Let me think if there's anything else in this before we go to the car. Let me just see if I wrote
a few questions on your story before you go
yes.
to the next thing. Do both people have to know that someone could walk in?
If both people have to know,
Do you need to let the man know, by the way, someone can walk in? Do you need to tell that other person?
one second, I'm just seeing something. Someone asked about Baila Ba'ir. Save the question. When I talk about Baila Ba'ir, I'll tell you why I didn't want to rely on that. I did not hear that both people have to know, but I could write it down. I do have a pen right here and find out. I thought that it's enough, but I'll find. I think I told him actually, but I don't remember. I'm writing down.
If you tell a friend to come over, why does it help? 2 girls and 1 boy won't take away your.
Right. So I said it quickly. I'll say it again. 1 second. The idea is not that she will be in the house. The idea is that someone could open my door and show up. That is the idea. She could right after that close the door and leave. And then I ask her, can you do this again? And I know that people do it, let's say in Eretz Yisrael in my days. Maybe still people do it today, but people used to go out, the first date was in a house. And then when you go out in a house, usually an empty house because you don't want anyone to be there, you ask the neighbor sometimes, like you'll ask the neighbor to walk in every once in a while. So let's say it's a boy and a girl sitting in an empty apartment and the neighbor is a woman. What does it help? It's 2 women and a man. She's not staying in the house. The doors kept a little bit open, slightly open or unlocked, and the fact that we know sitting in the room that somebody could just open the door and walk in on us, that takes away yichud. Then she closes the door and leaves. But we know that she could come in at any given moment. That takes away yichud.
Okay, thank you.
1 second. What did I want to say? There was something else that I wanted to say. I saw in my 1 second. There was something that I once had. This is something that when I renovated my house, we bought this house where we live now, and I renovated. I remember coming in the morning. We had to already start unpacking and get moving. So the workers were in the house, I kept the door open. I asked my father. I asked him if it's okay. I called. My father is a Rav, Rabbi Gukowski from Eretz Yisrael. So I called my father and I asked my father if I can keep the door open. And the workers were working on the first floor. And if I could be on the second floor in my room and unpack the boxes and put clothes on the shelves. And my father said, if the door is open and downstairs, it's fine. So I went upstairs and I was working there and then here comes, now I'm not saying, this is not a rule for everyone, but I want to share with you where I felt uncomfortable. The Rav told me that it's fine, meaning according to halacha, it's fine. But at a certain point, I myself felt a little bit awkward or uncomfortable, however you want to call it. I was thinking to myself, it's two men that are working downstairs. Yes, the door is open, but I'm alone upstairs. I don't know. I felt like I wanted to get out of there. Remember, my baby was sleeping. I woke up my baby and I just walked out of there because I personally did not feel comfortable. Now, if the Rav tells me it's 100% fine, it's fine really. But sometimes here in a situation like this, I was on the second floor in the back of the house. I, to myself, was a little bit uncomfortable with the feeling of being in the house with two workers working in the house. I didn't like it. So I walked out of there. I don't think, I think it makes sense. That's what I think. But if it's something that happens to a woman the whole time, she's constantly escaping of potential problem situations, then if it would happen to me all the time, then I would have to ask, is it normal or am I oversensitive and maybe I have sensory issues? I think we'll stop here. So what we're doing, so let me just sum up. We gave the introduction. We spoke about the definition of Yichud, which is a man and a woman alone in a private area. We gave the reason. We said that it's a prevention. We spoke about this important prevention as being the yellow light before the red light, and I told you some stories here. We spoke about the age of Yichud. We said that at least one has to be over bar bas mitzvah in order for it to be considered an avera and Yichud. We spoke about the Yichud, the relatives that there is Yichud with and there is no Yichud with. And then we said that there are two general ways to take away Yichud. There is taking away the definition of Yichud and taking away the reason of Yichud. We did not go into the details of how we take away the reason. I just gave you one example. We spoke about taking away the definition. We said, how do we take away the privacy? By having an opening to the public. We spoke about we spoke about the door, the window, the car, the elevator, the doctor's office, as when we spoke about the openings. And we did talk about two types of openings, which is people are around and people can come in. And we still need to talk about the car, the road. And here I'll tell you some stories of taxis in the middle of the night, getting to the airport in the middle of the night, the babysitting question with a husband driving a babysitter. All these things I'll talk about once we finish talking about the opening, when the public, when it comes to driving on a road. And hopefully most or all the questions will be answered. If you still have more, whatever I know I could answer. If I don't, I can ask a Rav and get back to you. Okay? I'm looking forward to spending another night of learning the halachas of Yichud next week, Be'ezras Hashem.
Thank you, Bracha. Before we go off, if we could just deal with a couple questions after with this part's topic, and that is psychotherapy with a therapist of the opposite gender. Is that just like a regular doctor with the door open? Are there other halachas involved, or is it something that will be part of what's included next week?
I'm writing it down because my students actually brought it up and I did ask, but I didn't get an answer. It's basically sitting in a room with a psychologist, right? Where right. I am opening up all my issues. Is that okay or not? So I don't know what the answer will be, yes or no, and I'll find out. But let's go, and even, if the answer is no, good. But there is, I believe, a problem with opening up and being so vulnerable to someone from the opposite gender.
So that's whether it's in person or not.
So I'll get back with the answer.
Okay. Another question is two men and one woman Yichud?
It will be answered Be'ezras Hashem next time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Bracha. We will continue next week. mikvah.org/Zoom. We do have 100-person limit and the room got full tonight. So I'd like to invite, if any of our listeners or viewers do have Facebook and are able to watch it live on Facebook, that's another option, leaving room for those who don't have Facebook or who are calling in to have space in the Zoom room. Either way, the recording also, Be'ezus Hashem, will be transferred to mikvah.org/media. We look forward to continuing learning with you next week. Bracha, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Good night, everybody.